you see, in other words, basically, equality means the same. Equality means just that. Equality means that you don't just pick the good side of equality. You also get the burden of equality too. And that's the problem.
And then what? What's an example of a burden?
In other words,
Hold on, you gotta give him. You gotta let him talk.
Okay.
Okay. But anyway, I'm gonna clarify that. Okay. Equality means equality for a man, the way a man sees it. Okay, you have every right to get whatever outcome you can earn. Okay. So that means if there's a man that can be CEO, there's got to be a man that hauls the trash, or builds the building, or picks up the fence, or whatever it does. Right? In other words, where a man sees it, it's equality down the line. You get what you can earn. You get whatever outcomes that you can actually develop. So if you're on the police force, that means there's only one standard. Okay, there's one standard. If you meet it, you meet it. If you don't, you don't. That's equality to a man. It's not, I have an opportunity. Everybody has an opportunity, but they also have the burden of performance. And that's the problem that men have with so-called equality. What women want is equity. There's a difference. Okay, equity means I get an outcome. And I can be different, but I get an outcome. And those two things those two things are not the same thing. Yes, it is. You got to read your own literature. In fact, the feminists said that. You read your own literature. In fact, that was the question about women getting drafted into the service in the first place. Black men did not get the vote just because they were black men, just because they were citizens. Black men got the vote because they went into the armed services. Same thing with white men. They actually fought and died for their right to vote, because white men didn't have the vote in the beginning of this country. But when they fought the Revolutionary War and they kicked out the English, and they fought and died and bled, then if you want to fight, die, and bleed, then that's why you get the vote. That's the whole reason about this. If you go back and you actually go back and look at history, okay, about the vote, about the modern freedoms, because this stuff that we talk about, voting and freedom, all that kind of stuff, it's only 200 years old. It's not that old. Okay, we think it's like thousands of years old. It's not. Okay. The reason that you got the vote, that you have the opportunity to have an individual freedom that you have, is because of what they call amateur weapons, right? In other words, with amateur weapons, then you couldn't have a small skilled army that could actually go in and actually devastate people, right? Okay, you have this big massive army that could actually go on and run through a whole continent. Okay, to actually repel that, you had to do what? You had to weaponize the peasants, and they have to go out and fight, die, and bleed for you. But if they're gonna fight, die, and bleed for you, guess what they get? They're gonna have to have a say in the government. That's where the vote comes from. Okay, women did not fight, die, and bleed for their vote. Okay, they were given the vote.
All right, folks, the clip that you just heard was taken from a couple of places. One, originally it was actually on Officer Charles Faulkner's channel during a stream. I think it was a Father's Day stream, if I'm not mistaken. And then I re-uploaded it on my channel, and I named it The Burden of Performance. And shout out to DC, Joe from DC. He wanted me to expound upon the burden of performance. So this is what I'm going to do, okay? That's why the video is named Equality, Equity, and the Burden of Performance, because there's a difference. There's a difference between equality and equity. And that's what I was trying to get her to understand. That's like she's a feminist, but she wasn't acquainted with her own literature, because the stuff is out there. I found what I was looking for within a couple of minutes, which is the thumbnail you see right there about equity versus equality. Now, the original person that coined the term burden of performance in this space, I'm not sure if it was him that did it here, but I mean, him that did it first worldwide, but it was actually somebody that did it here, was Rollo Tomasi. I think it was 2014, and his blog called The Burden of the Performance, but he actually uses it a slightly different way. And I do believe he gets that idea from Warren Farrell, because Warren Farrell wrote The Myth of Male Power. And in The Myth of Male Power, Warren Farrell says the difference between women and men is that women are human beings and men are human doings. In other words, women get credit for just being. They don't have to do anything special. They don't have to prove anything. They're accepted for just what they are. Men have to become what they are, which is where we get the hero's journey, where we have to struggle to become something better than what we started out to be and to finding our true selves. Men don't get to just be. Even little boys don't get just be. They have to become something, and they have to prove with the burden of performance that they have become something. And that's the way Rollo Tomassi uses it as far as male-female relationships and the difference between males and females, and also the hierarchy between males. In fact, I'll link this video where he kind of breaks that down a little bit in the description. You can actually go look at it and see how he actually talks about it. But I remembered hearing it. I couldn't remember at the time exactly where I heard it, but it was from Rollo Tomassi, because I know I didn't come up with it. And I was telling Lynn at the time, I didn't come up with it. It's not something that I came up with, but I actually applied it differently, slightly differently than Rollo Tomassi actually would, because the discussion was about equality and versus equity. Now, if you read feminist literature, they don't talk about equality. They talk about equity. Okay, the difference between equality and equity, as you can see in the thumbnail, is equal outcomes. Equity is an equal outcome, whereas equality is equal opportunity. And sometimes women like to, feminists like to put equality and race the same thing as equity, that black people are supposed to get a leg up or get a special higher because they're black, because of the law. Any black man can tell you that even if you get hired, you don't get anything special. In fact, you're looked down upon. And as soon as they can get rid of you, they will. Because equality, all it means is that you get an opportunity. You're supposed to get a level playing field, even though we know that the playing field for black men especially are not level. You have to be better than the other people that are around you. So if you look at equality, especially for black men, is actually reversed. The tall guy is actually the black person, not the white person. The white person is actually the one, the little short guy that's got all these handouts and these networks and the white pass to actually get him where he is. He doesn't have to be as good. He doesn't have to be as tall to see over the fence, because he's going to get help automatically. So a black person, just to see the fence, he's going to have to be better. Okay, the only opportunity he has is he gets to approach the fence, which is what civil rights and equal rights was all about. Black men are still fighting for the level playing field. Like the first part that you saw, which is the 3 people on an equal playing field. That's what black men really want. Okay, that's equality. Black men want equality. Black women and white women want equity. They want an equal outcome without the burden of performance, without qualifying as a talent. Equity doesn't matter about performance. Everybody gets the same thing. Everybody gets relatively the same outcome. So if you're not good enough, you're not strong enough, you're not fast enough, you're going to get a boost. You're going to get a exemption. You're going to get a leg up. Now, white folks get legs up by being better neighborhoods, better teachers, better schools, more money addressed to them, more positions open to them automatically just because of that color. So they have an unfair playing advantage. In other words, they get the 2 boxes of the two stands where they can actually peek over the fence. Okay, the black person doesn't get one. His opportunity is just to approach the fence, and he has to be good enough to actually peek over the fence on his own. If not, he won't see the game because the playing field is not equal. Now, a lot of women want to get hired and get positions that they're not qualified for, and when you ask them about performing up to the standard of everybody else, they'll say it's not fair because they're women. Because women are not human doings, they're human beings. They should get the same outcome just because they applied for it, just because you're women. Take, for instance, the military. The standard for a woman in the military is about 30 to 40% less than the same standard for males because they're women. But will they get 40% less opportunities or 40% less pay or 40% less opportunities for jobs? No, they're not. they'll get the same outcome as a man that's doing 40% more to qualify for the same thing. Same thing in the police department. Ask Officer Charles. They give extra points, extra allowances. They lower the standards so that the woman can qualify, just to have women on the police force, not because what they can do, is because who they are, because they're women. The same thing doesn't apply to a black male. A black male has to fight just to get an opportunity. Officer Charles had to fight just to get an opportunity to be on the police force because he's a black male. And then when he got there, he has to be better than his white constituents to get the job. All equality means you're supposed to have is a level playing field and the same opportunity as everybody else. Equity means regardless of your performance, regardless of your qualifications, you get the same thing as everybody else. Those are two different things. That's why feminists use equity instead of equality. Equity does not have the burden of performance. Equity means you don't get what you earn. You don't get what you deserve. You don't get the job that you're qualified for. It's the same way that men do. Men worry about equality. Do have the opportunity to do the same job that everybody else does, to meet that standard. And most men, if they don't meet the standard, they have no problem with not getting that job, because men believe in the burden of performance, just like Rollo Tomassi said. Men, as a group, believe in the burden of performance. Can you do the job? And there's a hierarchy of who's better at what job or who's better at what position. Why should I follow you? Leadership skills, all that kind of stuff. Even when it comes to women. I just did a video about a woman who's a 4 that thought she should have the same outcome, or felt that she should have the same outcome as her friends that are 8s and 9s. Even though she knows she didn't deserve to have the same outcome. What she was asking for is not equality, but what she was asking for is equity. That's why I made the same kind of parallel circumstance with a man. If a guy looked like her and he was short, he wasn't attractive, he would either have to do one or two things: either accept his station where he is and get the women that he can get, that his value, his SMV can get, or he's going to have to make a lot more money and actually literally buy those women. Use this money to actually get the women that he wants, those 8, 9s, or 10s. Now, homegirl could have got better looking dudes, more impressive dudes. She'd have to buy them, which most of those $100,000 women won't do. They say that because I make this amount of money, I should get this guy, but you're not spending your money on that guy. And even if you spend money, that's not a guarantee. Ask Oprah. And that's just the social environment. But if we're talking about the work environment, women don't want equality, they want equity. Equity does not have the burden of performance. Equality does. All equality means you get the same opportunity as everybody else to either rise or fall. Women don't like falling. They don't like doing uncomfortable jobs. They don't like being the person that working at the garbage truck. A woman would rather go on welfare than work maintenance at a garbage truck. Okay? She'd rather have a baby and get AFDC than become a carpenter and have to bend her back and bang nails and put up drywall and concrete because it's too hard. Most of the time, she's not going to go work at an Amazon warehouse. And the ones that do work at Amazon warehouses complain that the work is too hard. So what do they try to do? They try to lower the standard that's already been set and get the same pay, get the same outcome. And then they cry that women, not black women, but black women especially, say that they're just as good as a man. They're equal to men, until you start putting up the standards that men have to meet. And then they say it's not fair. And if you think about it, women don't worry about things being fair unless it's not in their favor. If they have privilege, pretty privilege, they have the outcome that they want, they could care less about it being fair. So what? It's not fair. I don't care that it's not fair. I'm getting the outcome that I want. And as soon as it's fair and they don't get the outcome they want, they're crying. Oh, it's colorism. Oh, it's non-body positivity. It's body shaming. It's men are too vain. The patriarchy is making the work too hard. On and on and on and on. Things aren't equal because it's not fair, because I'm not getting the same outcome as the next guy, as the guy over there. I don't get the same pay, even though I'm a nursery school teacher and this guy is a contractor that works 12 hours a day by the sweat of his brow, or a plumber has to go in front of these houses and is in more demand. She wants to make the same money as that guy without the work, even though there's nothing stopping her from doing that job. If you can do the job, you can do the same job as that guy, guess what? You get the same pay. That's the burden of performance. Equality has the burden of performance to succeed or to fail, to be a billionaire like Jeff Bezos or be a bum on the street collecting cans. That's equality. Same opportunities. Equity would be Bezos and a guy on the street making $100,000 a year. That's equity. We're both getting the same thing, even though Bezos is probably more valuable because of his ideas. America's not built on that. America's ideal is supposed to be a meritocracy. You get what you earn. You get what you're qualified for, which is really what black people fought for. Black people didn't fight for equity, for an outcome. It would be nice. Hell, most black people don't even think that we deserve reparations. Most black people do not think we deserve reparations because in their minds, we didn't earn it. Most black people want equality, the same opportunity as everybody else, which most of the time we don't get. But black women and white feminists want what? Equity. They don't care about the opportunity. They want the outcome, because the outcome with equity does not have the burden of performance, which is why most men get upset with women crying equality, because we know that's not what they're talking about. And I wish women, feminists, especially black feminists, stop throwing around the word equality. Use the right word so everybody's clear. Anyway, it's getting kind of long and kind of rambly, because we may have to come back and visit the burden of performance. I'm sure that it's been spoken about in a different way in the broader manosphere, but for the black manosphere, especially for this particular point when it applies to feminism, because I don't think Rollo Tomassi ever married equity with the burden of performance. I'm sure after he hears this, he probably will. Okay, because he does listen. Shout out to Rollo Tomassi. But I think this will be the first in a series, because Dr. Johnson was actually interested in that particular, I would say, theory, but idea when it's used that way. So without further ado, I'm going to bounce off here. This is BGS out, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.